It's Thursday, November 11th, and this is now on HNN.
This kid should never have been placed in that family.
HPD resumes the search of a Waimanalo property for a 6-year-old girl's remains after the arrest of her adopted parents.
We have never stopped our investigation. Ariel was never forgotten.
And the president marks the first Veterans Day in 2 decades without a war underway.
To be a veteran is to have endured and survived challenges most Americans will never know.
These stories, plus why Santas are in short supply this holiday season, that's coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon. Thanks for watching. This is Now on this Thursday. We want to get started today here in the HNN Digital Center with the latest on the Isabella Ariel Kalua case.
Yeah, the investigation now centers on her adoptive parents' home in Waimanalo. KZ Lund takes us there.
And this memorial outside the Kalua's Waimanalo home continues to grow today. Early this morning, those candles that were lit last night are still burning. The community, hundreds of people that have followed this story from the beginning, looking for answers. So much emotion tied up in this case, wanting to know exactly what happened to 6-year-old Ariel. Last night, they came together to say goodbye. People from across the island, as far as Makaha to Wahiawa, Eva Beach, they attended that candlelight vigil for Ariel. HPD says nearly 200 personnel, around 300 to 500 people, community members, volunteered in the search efforts over the last couple of months. Many of the people have been following Ariel's story from the beginning when she was first reported missing in September. Those folks were heartbroken yesterday to learn from police that they believe that she was murdered sometime in mid-August.
So it's just really sad. I just want to be here for them and show them that the community is out with them.
We've all had our suspicions from day one, but of course you hold on to that hope that your suspicions are incorrect. It's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching. I mean, the thought of somebody even harming a child, how can anybody harm a child?
Today on Sunrise, we spoke to Steve Lane, who is court-appointed special master in the Peter Boy case and involved in several other high-profile child abuse cases, to get his perspective on how this all unfolded. Steve, I want to ask you this morning the question that is on so many people's minds, especially the family, this community. Do you believe that this tragedy could have been prevented?
Yes, this child should never have been placed with the Kalua family. Mr. Kalua is a convicted felon involving crimes of violence, assault, and terroristic threatening. This kid should never have been placed in that family.
And I want to ask you also about Isabella, Ariel's other siblings. We know that they were taken into CWS custody after this investigation began, after she was reported missing. Can you walk us through that timeline and what you see moving forward for those innocent children and the legal struggle that's going to ensue after all of this?
Yeah, the children, I understand, were appropriately removed by CPS after the child was declared missing. They should have been placed in temporary foster care after that removal. There'll then be another confidential hearing in family court. Sadly, all these hearings are cloaked in secrecy, so there's no public disclosure of what occurs, in which the custody of these children will later be determined by a family court judge. One of my concerns is that there are apparently competent, available volunteer members of the biological family who are willing to take these children and who are willing to take the children before they were placed with the Kalua family. That's another question, is why didn't the state look first, as they're required to the biological family relatives for the placement of these children? Hopefully that the children now in foster care with CPS will be given an opportunity to return to the biological family relatives.
The biological family of Ariel saying that they are thinking of this as the beginning to a hopeful end and some possible closure for so many people that have been thinking about that young girl who would have recently turned 7 years old. Reporting in Waimanalo, I'm KC Lund for This Is Now.
Police say there's a lot they can't reveal about the evidence, but they did say something happened in the last 10 days that led to the arrests. HPD says the Kaluas were initially cooperative with investigators. They let them into their house and provided statements, but as time went on, that stopped.
People. Unfortunately, what began as a search for a missing girl turned into a murder investigation focused on the Kaluas. While we are unable to discuss the details at this time, we believe that the evidence leads to the Kaluas and no one else. As a reminder, this is still an active investigation. I'd like to thank those in the community and the media who were patient with this investigation, who were cooperative with investigators, and who continue to seek the truth and justice for Ariel.
They have followed up on every lead and every Crime Stopper tip that has come in. Oftentimes, these follow-ups resulted in us requesting assistance from the Honolulu Police Department Specialized Services Division, the Crime Analysis Unit, and the Crime Scene Unit. Multiple items of evidence were recovered and tested. Multiple people were interviewed, and those interviews were recorded and reviewed. And hours of surveillance was also recovered and reviewed. I want to let everyone know that despite the criticism reported by some of the media, we have never stopped our investigation. Ariel was never forgotten.
Now let's talk more about the timeline of this case. The Kaluas told HPD that Isabella Ariel was last seen asleep in her room on September 12th. They reported her missing that next day. The little girl's biological family, volunteers, and multiple agencies immediately began combing Oahu's side. Until yesterday, HPD had not publicly spoken to the media about this case since September 17th, but Isabella Ariel's biological family has been holding rallies in Waimanalo, in front of the Kalua house, and at Child Welfare Services, hoping to get answers. This brings us to yesterday and HPD's arrest of the girl's adoptive parents. So we're going to stay on top of this story and keep bringing you updates. Tune in to First at 4 on KHNL for the latest details, and of course you can always check those H&N digital platforms for any updates. An inmate who pulled off an elaborate jailbreak at OCCC has been captured. Guards noticed Morgan Bear missing during a head count around 10:30 Tuesday night. Law enforcement sources say Bear allegedly broke a bathroom window to get outside before using a jumpsuit as a barrier to scale the razor wire fence. Details of his capture are not yet known, but we do know he's being held at the Kapolei station. And take a look at these new government figures regarding inflation. Beef prices are up 20% since last year. Furniture up 12%. New cars nearly 10%. The largest one-year increase since 1975. Even rent for the average apartment has shot up by over $100 a month. The Labor Department says inflation has hit a 31-year high, with prices rising at more than double the rate we've seen in recent decades. The president says it's a top priority to get inflation under control. Prices typically rise about 2 to 3% a year, but since a year ago, they have shot up more than 6%. For much more on this story, let's turn it over to NBC's Tom Costello.
Whether you're filling your tank, stocking up at the grocery store,
and are you guys paying the other separate?
Or dining out, the cost for just about everything is trending higher. The Consumer Price Index spiking 6.2% for October, the largest inflation surge in more than 3 decades.
The gas prices are bananas.
I don't eat much steak anymore either.
Everything's more expensive. Everything across the board.
Just in the past year, a gallon of milk has climbed 28 cents. A pound of ground beef up 66 cents. While gas prices have soared more than $1, reaching levels we haven't seen since 2014. Used cars are also up 26% at auto shops nationwide. The supply chain crisis is making it tough to order parts.
So parts, most of them are available if you're willing to wait, you know. But everything, it used to be we could get cars in and out in a day. Now it's sometimes a week.
A week, or even longer.
Or even longer. Yeah, absolutely.
From auto parts to toy stores, discounts this season may be hard to come by. And you'll pay more if you're traveling over the holidays. For Thanksgiving, up 23% over last year, $300 round trip on average. If you wait till Christmas week, $511 round trip. The good news, airfares are still lower than they were before the pandemic, but across the country, millions of people have now left the workforce.
The economy is reopening, and employers are scrambling for workers, and they're having to pay more money to workers. What they're doing is they're passing along those higher costs in their prices.
That's creating a dilemma for some businesses. Cole Rusich manages Post Oak Barbecue in Denver.
Brisket pricing that I get now changes, I would say, almost weekly.
So far, they've avoided passing on the cost to their customers.
And I'm not going to change the brisket sign out there to say market price like it's seafood. We just keep it what it is, and some weeks it's a lower margin and some weeks it's a higher one.
The HTA is releasing the results of a new survey that was done in October, and it says 81% of visitors from the mainland said their trips here to the islands was excellent. 94% say they were fully vaccinated. A third said they delayed flying here until they were. 38% of visitors who had been here before said their trips were less satisfying than pre-COVID times. You may be surprised that number wasn't a little higher, but 90% of visitors said they were able to do all or most of what they had planned. Remember, a lot of restaurants and attractions were closed in September.
Well, you could say the Rainbow Warrior football team is gearing up for another home game, only this time it's in the 9th island of Las Vegas. Kyle Chinen is in Sin City with a preview.
Aloha from Las Vegas. I'm here on the Strip just a couple miles away from Allegiant Stadium, where in 2 days, the Rainbow Warriors are set to take on UNLV. A lot on the line for the Bows, who are looking to keep their bowl game dreams alive. UH needs at least 6 wins to make a bowl, and it starts this weekend against the Rebels, a team that is riding high after snagging their first win of the season against New Mexico, while Hawaii is coming off of a close 17-10 loss to San Diego State. Now, they might be on the road this weekend, but it could feel like a home game, with a good number of the Warrior faithful set to make the trip to the 9th island.
I mean, that's big. I mean, I just showed you how much they love and care for the team and how much they support Hawaii football. I mean, the fan support is humongous, and we love it, and we truly want them to keep coming to games, keep traveling and things like that, and we're going to eventually get this thing going. Every time we play for a trophy, that's a big opportunity, and so for us, we're trying to keep it here. It's been here for maybe the last three years, I think. So
also on the line this weekend is the Island Showdown Trophy. Now, Hawaii has won the Golden Pineapple 3 out of the last 4 seasons. Reporting from Las Vegas, I'm Kyle Chinen for This Is Now.
And if you were wondering where Ashley is, she is on her way to join Kyle right now in Vegas. We're going to have coverage throughout the coming days, so look forward for more live reports and more interesting reports from all those fans heading there to Vegas right now. And that is exciting stuff. I'm very jealous of that assignment.
Oh, absolutely, huh? Going to Vegas, huh? Yeah. Catch a little UH game. And it's also a busy weekend in Vegas for sports. You have the game. Max Holloway will be fighting.
Oh, yeah.
And then also there are a lot of Raiders fans across the state. They're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. So
the California is hopping right now. I can guarantee it. And I'm so jealous, guys. Have fun, Ashley and Kyle.
And those local mocos.
All right, more sports news.
Yeah, turning our attention to UH basketball right now. The Bows opened their season last night with a resounding 30-point win against UH Hilo to tip off the Outrigger Rainbow Classic. UH Manoa, 6 players scored in double figures. They shot nearly 50% from the field. More than 1,300 vaccinated fans were at the Stan Sheriff Center, and the team is back on the court tonight against Northern Colorado.
All right, seeing some fans in the stand there too, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, speaking of COVID pandemic and those precautions that they were taking there at the stadiums for many, many months, more than a year, let's get to the pandemic news now. More than 130 new cases being reported today by the State Department of Health and 3 additional fatalities. We have the complete island-by-island breakdown of all today's new cases being reported on your H&N digital platforms. Just head there to check them out. Want to head outside now, take a live video feed coming into the H&N Digital Center from our tower cam downtown. See a few clouds out there, and I know there's some fun surf in the works and a very rainy weekend ahead. Let's turn it over to our good friend Guy Hoggy with those updates.
And the surf's going to be fun today. With those light winds, conditions will be glassy in the morning, a little onshore sea breeze by the middle of the day, and the best waves rolling into the south shore. But on Friday, look for a bump that could be coming up in the afternoon, followed up by another bigger swell over the weekend. So we got fairly dry conditions through Saturday, and then a cold front drops in Saturday night into Sunday. Sunday looks like it's going to be a wash with cloudy skies, scattered showers. Some of those showers could even be heavy, and they should be drying up by Monday.
On this Veterans Day, the nation is honoring its men and women in uniform. Skylar Henry has a wrap-up from Washington, D.C.
Across the U.S., cities and towns held commemorations to honor the service of our military veterans.
How are you?
In Paris, Vice President Kamala Harris joined the French president to mark Armistice Day, signifying the end of the First World War. While just outside the nation's capital, service members recreated the 1921 funeral procession on its centennial anniversary for the first unknown soldier who served in World War I. President Biden laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier and spoke at Arlington National Cemetery.
To be a veteran is to have endured and survived challenges most Americans will never know.
I look at my own unit, there's only 4 of us left, and I'm the youngest.
At the World War II Memorial, we met 93-year-old Ohio native Harry F. Miller, who enlisted when he was 15, claiming he was 18 at the time.
I'll freely admit I was scared.
Miller served in Europe, where he saw the horrors of the Dachau concentration camp in Germany.
What do you remember most over the course of those years?
I dreamed about Dachau for years after that. I could even smell it.
Miller, whose time in the Army and Air Force spanned 2 decades, hopes to attend many more Veterans Day ceremonies. He says for all the guys who can no longer make it. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Washington.
As global leaders meet to address climate change, the U.S. and China with a surprise move this week and released a joint declaration pledging to work together on the climate crisis. They're aiming to collaborate on strengthening the implementation of the Paris Agreement, which partly includes deforestation and reducing methane emissions. The pandemic caused a boom in plastic waste, and much of it ended up in our oceans. CBS's Ian Lee takes a look at the startling effects of the COVID crisis.
The pandemic touched all corners of the earth and deep into the oceans. A new study finds the battle against COVID produced 8.4 million tons of plastic trash. From that, 57 million pounds of everyday PPE ended up in the seas.
They're getting inundated with a new source of trash, which is face masks, face shields.
Add to that more packaging material from online shopping as folks stayed at home, all of which has proven deadly to marine life.
And we think that that's likely to be an entanglement hazard for fish, for sea turtles.
Volunteers cleaning canals in the Netherlands found a fish trapped in the finger of a latex glove. Researchers say Asia has generated about 46% of pandemic plastic waste, while 22% came from North and South America combined, and 24% from Europe.
We're using more than 2 billion masks a day, these single-use throwaway items.
The study found the most waste came from hospitals. Dr. Marcus Erickson has studied the plastic problem for more than 20 years.
The pandemic is producing a lot of trash, and we're hoping that this blip in trash generation will fade as the pandemic does. Going to reuse and reusable systems is the way to go.
But if action isn't taken to either recycle or better manage the waste, researchers predict 3 million more tons of trash will pile up and stay with us long after the pandemic winds down. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
I know everyone's been talking about that story for a long time and the trash that's ending up in our ocean as a result of the pandemic, but those images were really hard to see, actually.
Yeah, when you actually see the extent of it, it's insane.
Not cool. Let's get to some other news the internet is talking about right now. And you know, the labor crisis caused by the pandemic is now impacting a very familiar face you see in malls across America. We're talking about those guys who act as Santa's helpers there. You know, the mall Santas. You know, Santa's best friends who come out to all the malls across America and help them out. Well, the head of a professional Santa school in Denver says they're down about 10 to 15% on Santas this year, meaning towns across the U.S. are unable to book St. Nick for appearances. Because, you know, Santa can't be everywhere, even though he has that magical sleigh that gets around so fast. Reports say many older, heavier men who are usually in these roles are not taking part this year because of COVID scares and precautions, so they sort of want to hang low, They don't want to be out exposed to that many people. But some companies, and we saw this last year, same with the Easter Bunny, they're exploring those virtual settings that kids can take part of, and I bet Santa appreciates that as well.
Yeah, last year it was understandable because we were in the thick of the pandemic, but now, as we're starting to see more places open up more and more, demand is at 120%, and that's just, it's changing the entire holiday experience.
And what Christmas is without being on one of those mall Santa's laps and getting that traditional picture, you gotta have one.
We are, and speaking of Christmas traditions, we are one step closer to seeing the Rockefeller Center iconic Christmas tree. This year's edition was cut today. A 79-foot Norway spruce from Maryland. This tree will be in New York by this weekend. It's going to feature 50,000 multicolored lights, topped off with a Swarovski star that contains 3 million crystals. So it's cut down, it's taken by truck to Rockefeller Center, and there we go. And this is the first time that the tree will be coming from Maryland.
And look at that scenery in Maryland today. Those fall colors really pop in there as that crane is moving that tree out from its woodland area. I could look at those autumn colors all day.
You're getting the tree from a picturesque landscape right now. Look at that perfectly manicured lawn. You got the fall colors. It's like a painting.
Little Bob Ross action there. Bye, tree. Say goodbye to your happy little friends.
And just keep this up for the rest of the show. Now,
we got to move on.
Moving on to social media. Now, if you're one of those that scrolls online on Instagram for hours and hours on end, well, there may be a solution on the way. The site is reportedly testing the Take a Break feature that reminds people when they've spent an extended period of time online. Users would need to choose how long they can browse before a reminder appears, so they need to opt into this feature. Now, this change comes as Instagram and its parent company, Meta, formerly Facebook, face scrutiny over social media's effects on mental health. Now, I am curious, though, about the opt-in feature, because could you set it where it's like, okay, let me know after 30 minutes, or, people just dismiss it? It's kind of like a wake-up alarm, right? Yeah, you could set it, but you'll hit snooze over and over again.
Yeah, that would be me. And I have to say, I'm so guilty of just going autopilot, and I'm like completely unaware that I'm even scrolling through my feed. And all of a sudden, the phone is in my hand just like that, and I don't even know what I'm looking at.
And then you get the screen time report, and it all comes back to you.
I know, right? You're up 26%.
Right.
Yes.
Now, back to the holiday stories here. Starbucks is continuing to get into the spirit. The Coffee Corporation is said to be working on a collaboration with Taylor Swift. Her new album, Red, drops Friday, and the chain is promoting its Red holiday cups and seasonal beverages. Now, get this. There were whispers that Starbucks was going to have a deal involving grande caramel non-fat lattes, Swift's favorite drink. But the company tweeted out that is not the case. It's simply to just enhance the focus on the album and its holiday beverages.
So I was off for a few days, about a week and a half.
Yep.
And I know we always do that traditional story of the holiday cups.
The cups, yes.
I haven't seen it yet. Have you seen it?
Oh, yes. As a huge coffee lover and a purveyor of caffeine, the cups are definitely here.
Okay. Usually I see Lynn Cuano walking through the newsroom or someone with one, but I haven't noticed yet. All right, guys, we want to wrap up our show today. This is Thursday here at This Is Now. Mark's going to be back with you at First at 4, only on KHNL and streaming on your HNN digital devices as well. Don't forget, we're podcasting both This Is Now and First at 4 all the time. You can find those podcasts. Just search Hawaii News Now wherever you find your podcast. It'll pop right up, and you can listen on the go, in your car, using your phone. If you don't use that Instagram timer, you can find us almost anywhere. Have a good day, guys. See you Friday.